You delete a file, not move it, not rename it. Delete. The trash empties. The progress bar finishes. The space looks free again. And yet, nothing actually left. That photo, that contract, that message you swore was gone. It's still sitting there. Quiet, intact, just pretending to be dead. This is the uncomfortable truth computers don't advertise. Most of the time, deleting a file doesn't erase it. It just removes the sign that says it exists. Your laptop smiles politely while keeping the data exactly where it was. This wouldn't matter if hard drives weren't resold, if laptops weren't stolen, if cloud accounts weren't breached, if deleted didn't sound so final. But today, storage is cheap, data lives long, and forgetting is surprisingly hard. In the next few minutes, we're going to peel back that illusion. Not with jargon, not with scare tactics, just the quiet mechanics of how deletion actually works, and why the idea of gone forever is mostly a comforting story we tell ourselves. To understand why deleting doesn't really delete, we have to rewind to a much simpler moment in computing history, a time when storage was small, slow, expensive, and deeply physical. Early computers didn't think in terms of files the way we do. They thought in locations, exact spots on a disk. A file wasn't a thing. It was a map, a list of where the data lived. Deleting, even back then, was never about destroying the data. It was about erasing the map. Imagine a massive library where every book is locked to the floor. The catalog tells you which shelf, which row, which position. Deleting a book doesn't burn it, it just removes the catalog card. The book stays put, waiting for someone else to be assigned that space. That logic stuck, not because engineers were lazy, but because it was efficient. Actually erasing data takes time, real time. Every bit has to be overwritten. On early drives, that meant minutes instead of milliseconds. On modern drives, it still costs performance, battery, and lifespan. Multiply that by millions of deletions a day, and suddenly real deletion becomes an expensive luxury. So operating systems made a quiet deal with reality. When you hit delete, the system says, okay, this space is available again. It doesn't say, destroy what's inside. Your file system keeps a table, a master list of what files exist and where they live. Deleting a file just removes its entry from that table. The data blocks themselves, untouched, unchanged, invisible but present. This is why recovery software works at all. It doesn't resurrect files, it just scans the disk for orphaned data blocks that still look like something meaningful. Photos, videos, PDFs, the ghosts of files past, and this behavior didn't disappear as technology advanced. It scaled. Hard drives got bigger, SSDs got faster, cloud storage exploded, but the philosophy stayed the same. Speed first, destruction later, if ever. Even the trash bin is mostly theater. A courtesy pause, a second chance. When you empty it, you're not triggering a digital incinerator. You're just telling the system, okay, you can reuse this space now. And until that space is reused, the data remains. Calm. Patient, waiting to be overwritten by coincidence, not intention. Which brings us to the uncomfortable part, because once you realize deletion is mostly symbolic, the question stops being, why does this work this way? And starts becoming, who else can still see what I thought was gone? Here's where the story gets tense. Because the system doesn't just fail occasionally, it works exactly as designed. And that design quietly benefits everyone except the person doing the deleting. Let's start with the moment your file is supposed to disappear. You hit delete. The file system removes the reference. The storage space is marked free. That's it. Nothing scrubs the data, nothing panics, nothing rushes to clean up. The drive just shrugs and moves on. And this creates a strange window of vulnerability. Sometimes seconds, sometimes years. On a lightly used drive, deleted data can sit untouched for a very long time, especially large files, especially old laptops, especially external drives that get plugged in once every few months and forgotten. This is why used computers are a gold mine. Researchers have bought secondhand hard drives online and recovered tax returns, medical records, intimate photos, company secrets. Not because they hacked anything, not because they broke encryption, but because the previous owner trusted the word delete. One study in the late 2000s found that a majority of secondhand drives still contained recoverable personal data. More recent experiments show the same pattern. The numbers change, the behavior doesn't. Now add solid-state drives to the mix. SSDs are faster, quieter, and we're told they're safer. But they introduce their own irony, because SSDs don't overwrite data the way old hard drives did. They spread writes across the drive to avoid wearing out any single cell. This means deleted data can linger in places the operating system doesn't even track cleanly anymore. Manufacturers added something called trim to help. It tells the drive which blocks are no longer needed. But no longer needed still doesn't mean immediately erased. It means erase this later when convenient. Convenient for the drive, not for you. Then there's the cloud. Deleting a file from cloud storage feels final. You close the tab, you log out, it's gone everywhere, right? Except cloud systems are built on redundancy, copies, backups, mirrors across data centers, version histories, legal holds, recovery windows, snapshots you never asked for but are grateful for when something breaks. Deletion in the cloud is often a request, not a command. The file disappears from your view, but copies may persist for weeks or months in backups, sometimes longer depending on policy, regulation, or litigation, sometimes forever in cold storage, disconnected but intact. And none of this is malicious. It's practical, it's efficient, it's safer for companies to keep data longer than to destroy it too aggressively, which leads to a quiet imbalance of power. You think deletion is an action, the system treats it as a suggestion, and as storage keeps getting cheaper, there's less incentive to forget. The turning point comes when you realize this isn't just about lost laptops or secondhand drives. It's about scale and timing and math that doesn't care how careful you think you are. Because deletion doesn't fail randomly. It fails predictably. Every system is optimized for speed, uptime, and convenience, not for forgetting. Forgetting is slow. Forgetting costs money. Forgetting breaks things when done too aggressively. So the system quietly chooses to remember by default. Now stretch that across years. A single photo feels harmless. A single document feels boring, but data doesn't stay single. It accumulates, it clusters, it correlates. Deleted files sit next to logs, logs sit next to caches, caches sit next to backups, and suddenly fragments of your digital life start telling a story, even when you think the chapters are gone. This is how small leaks become full reconstructions. Investigators don't need the whole file. They need patterns, metadata, timestamps, file names that reference something you thought you erased, a thumbnail preview that never got deleted, a temporary copy created by an app and forgotten by the system, quiet leftovers. And here's the uncomfortable math. Storage density doubles roughly every few years. The cost of keeping data trends towards zero. The cost of deleting it safely does not. So organizations keep more, longer, just in case. That email you deleted 5 years ago might still exist in an archive meant for compliance. That document you removed could still live inside a backup tape sitting in a warehouse, untouched but readable. That chat message may be gone from your screen, but preserved in someone else's export. Deletion protects interfaces, not realities. This is the moment where hype collapses. We're told modern tech is clean, precise, and controllable. That privacy settings are switches, that delete buttons are decisions. But under the surface, the machinery is blunt, probabilistic, optimized for survival, not erasure. Even secure delete tools are negotiating with physics. Overwriting assumes you control every copy. On modern systems, you often don't. Between where leveling, caching layers, virtualized storage, and remote replication, certainty dissolves. You're not deleting a thing. You're hoping every version of that thing gets the message. Most of the time, it doesn't. And once you see that, the story stops being about files. It becomes about trust, about what we assume technology is doing for us versus what it actually promises. So where does that leave us? Not paranoid, not powerless, just less naive. Deleting a file was never a guarantee. It was a convenience feature designed for a world where storage was scarce and trust was implicit. That world is gone. What remains is an interface that still speaks the old language, even as the machinery underneath plays by very different rules. This doesn't mean your data is always one click away from disaster. It means the idea of digital erasure is conditional, temporary, dependent on systems, incentives, and time. If data isn't overwritten, it can be recovered. If it's copied, it can persist. If it's backed up, it can outlive you. The quiet irony is that technology got better at remembering just as we started needing it to forget. And the responsibility never fully sits with the user. You can encrypt drives, you can wipe devices properly, you can use secure erase tools and full disk encryption from day one. These things help. They matter, but they don't change the underlying truth. Deletion is not destruction, it's deprioritization. Most of the time, your data disappears not because it was erased, but because something else needed the space more. It vanishes by accident, by entropy, by replacement, not by intention. That's fine for a vacation photo. It's different for medical records, or private messages, or financial documents. And as more of life becomes data, the gap between hidden and gone starts to matter. So the real question isn't how to delete better. It's this. In a world where remembering is cheap, forgetting is optional, and deletion is mostly symbolic, who actually controls what disappears? Because the delete button still looks the same, but what it promises has quietly changed. And once you notice that, it's very hard to unsee.